كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. There's an authentic hadith. She narrates that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Ahabbul a'mal ila Allah ta'ala, ahabbul a'mal ila Allah ta'ala, adwamuha wa in qalla." Ahabbul a'mal, the best of all deeds. Ahabbul a'mal ila Allah ta'ala, the best of all deeds before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is adwamuha, which is being performed constantly, with full punctuality and regularly. Then she said, وَإِنْ قَلَّ, even if it is a small, it's not too big, the quantum of the action is too little, this hardly matters, it must be a great deed. No, if a person is able to perform small things but with effort, Prophet ﷺ, that is the best of deed in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the best of deed in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So al-khaifu haribu min rabbi, the example of the one who is having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that who is scared of Allah, but this fear doesn't take him away from Allah, rather it pushes him closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you remember, in our one of our previous sessions, I discussed that if we see a wild beast, we see a panther, we see a tiger, we see a lion, what we will do? Do we stay there watching him? Of course, we tried top level best to run away. We know that the nature of the beast is to tear apart a person, to destroy him and kill him. So naturally, when we see any potential threat to our life, we try our top level best to run away from the source of that potential threat. This is deadly impossible that we see anything which is potentially dangerous for us, which is a potential threat to our life, and still we begin to love it. Deadly impossible. This is against the human nature. Even if the stray dog barks upon us, what we shall do? Yes, we are scared enough. We try to acquire all sorts of security. So from this perspective, when this fear, it takes a person away from the source of the fear. This fear, it makes a person to run away from the instrument of the fear, whatever it is. But the khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, when a person develops the khawf of Allah, the fear of Allah, it makes him to run to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's totally contrary to the khawf of dunya, the khawf of the beasts, where we find that there's a potential threat of our life. So we ensure, we try our top level best to maintain a gap, to run away as much as we can to save ourselves. But the khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so amazing. When it is cast into the heart of a servant, and he is having this feeling of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it helps him to perform more and more ibadah, to seek more and more forgiveness from him, and to get to know about his will more and more, how he is pleased with, what are the things he is displeased with, and he tries his best to adopt the means of pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to avoid the means of displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the khawf is al-khaifu haribun min rabbihi ila rabbih. So this fearful person, he is running away from Allah because of his sins, and then he's rushing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This khawf doesn't make a person disappointed. It doesn't make a person pessimist and making him to lose each and every hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, it develops a strong hope in a person. So this khawf is immensely important for our survival. What I mean by survival is our spiritual survival. And another dynamics of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is لا يمح الشهوات إلا خوف مزعج أو شوق مقلق. لا يمح الشهوات. Shahwat means the human desires. Do you think that there is any stage where a person thinks that he has no desire? Is there any stage in human life, in anyone's life, where he feels that now there are no desire left with him? Can you hear me? Impossible. What about others? What's the opinion of others? So one opinion is impossible. We don't have any stage in our life that we don't have the desire. There was a very famous poet in India. He wrote in two languages, Urdu and Persian. He's quite famous all over the world. His name is Ghalib. Hopefully, you might have heard his name. Ghalib. Ghalib is known for his poetic genius. He says, "Hazaron khahish hai aisi ke har khahish pe dam nikle." He says the human nature is that it is having okay. So I don't understand what it refers to. I it is one. I don't know. Okay, you also agree with this. There is no stage, no desire. I mean, there is no stage, so you agree with the first opinion. That's what the Ghalib also says. The Ghalib is a very, very famous poet, and his poetic imagination is quite strong and high. It's amazing when we see his poetry, specifically his Persian poetry. Then his level of imagination is too high. So one of his couplets is Hazarun Khahish Aisi. He actually describes the human nature vis-a-vis the desires. He says that each and every single soul hosts hundreds and thousands of desires in the heart. But every time a person thinks, "Oh Allah, if you fulfill this desire of mine, I won't ask anything after this." And that desire seems to be a great job for him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He has created us to test us in all aspects. So once a person gets this desire fulfilled, then what happens? Before it is fulfilled, another stronger and more greater desire has already erupted. It has already emerged. And a person thinks, "Ya Allah, if you fulfill this desire of mine, after this I won't ask anything." He says, "Hazaru khahishe aisi." There are such thousands of desires of a person, and each desire in itself is a life-taking desire. It's a life-taking desire. It means immensely and tremendously higher desire. However, more a person's desire are getting fulfilled, bahut nikle dil ke arma. More a person's desires get fulfilled, more he feels deprived. So there's no end to it. There's no end to it. And so la yamhu shahwat. So these desires of a person cannot be destroyed because it is a part of the human synthesis. Our synthesis is made upon these ingredients. These are the basic components of our creation. And this is a means of test for us. And these desires are, and Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says, rahimahullah, there are two diseases. One is Da'u Shubuhat and second is Da'u Shahwat. Da'u Shubuhat means the disease of doubts. And Da'u Shahwat is disease of desires. Disease of doubt, what could be the possible remedy for this? If a person is having disease of doubts, what could be the possible medicine for this? How a person can treat the disease of doubts? If a person is suffering through disease of desire, disease of doubts, what could be the possible and potential medicine for this, to remove or to overcome this disease of doubts? Yes. Through good knowledge. So knowledge is is a cure to the doubt, because doubt arises out of ignorance. Doubt arises out of lack of knowledge. So when proper knowledge is provided to a person, definitely his disease is addressed and his disease is treated well. And second disease, which Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says, rahimahullah, is Da'u Shahwat. Da'u Shahwat, the disease of desires. And what could be the possible and potential treatment for diseases of doubts? Disease of desires. For disease of doubts, yes, knowledge is a possible and potential medicine to it. For desires of a person, when there are many a shahwat, many a desires, as Ghalib says, hazaru khahish, thousands of desires are there. So what could be the possible remedy for this? Prayer means or remembering death. Two answers. Anyone else? Prayer is good, and remembering death also good. Or any other possible remedy for this? What is it? I can't understand this. If you could explain this more, so that it will be easier for me to understand. Can repeat question? Okay, my question is, there are two diseases. So here's a comment that I repeat question. Okay, I repeat my question. The question is, we have Hafiz Ibn al-Qayyim says, rahimahullah, we have two diseases, disease of doubt and disease of heart. So if a person is suffering through the disease of doubt, I question that what should be the possible potential medicine for this. So the answer came, it is a knowledge, and that's true, because a person is always having doubts. There is non-availability of knowledge, lack of knowledge, or out of ignorance. Then my second question is, as far as the disease of desires is concerned, what could be the possible remedy for disease of desires? So one answer came the prayer, second answer came the remembrance of death. Because both are good, but it is the fasting. Okay, istighfar. Good. These are all things which will moderate our soul, which will, or charities. Another answer. Istighfar, fasting, charity, prayer, and remembrance of death. All these things help us to control our nafs, to control our desires. And but on top of it, how is it possible for a person that on stronger basis he control his desires? That is on the basis of khawf. If there is truly the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in true sense, you'll find that person, he won't go nearer to the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there will be a paradigm shift in the desires of a person. Before it was the desires of nafs, desires of lust, desires of dunya. Now there will be the desires, because without desires you cannot live. Of akhirah, desire of ibadat, as prayer, remembrance of death, istighfar, fasting, charity. Now this desire will develop. So we can say that a person's desire will be switched to the good from bad. There will be a switch. There will be a transformation, a change from bad desires to the good desires. And that is only possible when a person is having the fear of Allah. You imagine when we have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if there are the environment which we are, the surroundings in which we are, it is full of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but still a fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the heart. Wallahi, summa wallahi. This will help a person, this will protect a person from disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what la yamhu ash-shahwat. Actually, we are discussing this quotation of our as-salaf as-salihun. La yamhu ash-shahwat illa khawfun muz'ij. That the desires cannot be overpowered. Our desires cannot be controlled and subjugated except through the terrible khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strong khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strong fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, let's explain over here that, but when they fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not a kind of gloomy, a kind of despondency, a kind of disappointedness from Allah. No, it has to be taken into its positive meaning. So la yamhu shahwat illa khawfun muz'ij. The desires of a person can be controlled only by the true nature of the khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, true nature of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aw shawqun mukhliq. A second thing is important to control our desire, that is having the true and sincere passion to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aw shawqun mukhliq. There's a eagerness, sincere eagerness to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a situation that Allah is pleased with the person. And another qawl of our salaf as-salihun regarding the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at-taqwa tatawalladu min al-khawf. The natural outcome of khawf is taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The natural outcome of khawf, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as far as taqwa, these are two terms. Apparently, when even many translators, they translate both the things most of the time. Taqwa, fear of Allah. Khawf, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's a subtle difference between the two. What's the difference between taqwa and the khawf? We shall discuss that inshallah by the end of this subject, by the end of this domain, that is fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many other terms used. It apparently seems to be of the same meaning, but there are differences. Like there is khawf, there is taqwa, there is khashiyya. Khashiyya is also discussed. So these are different words or different terminologies which apparently seem to be conveying the same translation or same meaning, but it is not the case. Rather, they are having different meanings. So inshallah, when we reach there I discuss the difference between taqwa and the khawf. However, Taqwa, the natural outcome of khawf of Allah is taqwa. And aslu kull khairil al-khawf min Allah. Our pious predecessors, they used to say, aslu kulli khairin, aslu kulli khairin al-khawf min Allah. The origin of every good deed is fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why a person is doing good, why a person is staying away from the bad, it is a fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in him. That I have to meet him, I have to face him, I'll be presented to my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And إذا سكن الخوف القلوب أحرق مواضع الشهوات منها. Whenever the heart, the khawf of Allah, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is placed into the heart of a person. Whenever the khawf of Allah finds its place into the heart of a person, what happens? أحرق شهوات. It burns all the desires in the heart of a person. وَطَرَدَ الدُّنْيَا عَنْهَا. And a lawful love of dunya is taken out of the heart of a person. This is the beauty of khawf of Allah. When it is placed into the heart, أَحْرَكَ مَوَادِعَ الشَّهْوَاتِ مِنْهَا. It burns up all desires in the heart. And it throws away the unlawful love. And الآثام ظاهرا وباطنا. And this is $1 million statement of our predecessors. Sidqul khawf, sincerity in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Truthfulness in the fear of Allah. It's not just we pretend to be having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that the people will feel that they are very pious, they are very righteous. It's all wallahi useless. Even if all the people of dunya, they acknowledge you are pious, you are righteous, but our creator, our master doesn't acknowledge it. It's all futile, it's all useless. On the other hand, if all the people of the dunya don't recognize a person, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers him to be the pious, that's the ultimate thing we want. That's the ultimate thing we want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because by the end of the day, everything is in the hands of Allah. So we should always try to please Allah, not the people. And sidqul khawf, the truthfulness of this fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It helps a person to stay away from all sorts of disobedience, all sorts of sins, zahiran wa batinan, explicitly and implicitly, whether in public or in privacy. At both the places, when a person is in public, is among the people, that time, many a times it also happens that a person stays away from the bad deeds because there's fear of the people. They're watching. And when a person is rendered alone, there's nobody around, there's a kind of, there's a, we can say, a kind of more test is there. But the khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps a person to shun the ways of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sidqul khawfi, the truthfulness, if you want to see the truthfulness of our fear of Allah, how far we are truthful in hosting the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the heart. That is, we need to see that how much we are staying away from the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In both explicitly and implicitly, publicly or privately, we need to see that how much we stay away from the prohibitions, how much we refrain from the forbidden things of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we stay away from the prohibited things, it means there is wara, there is taqwa in a person, there is truly the khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that person is doing everything only for the sake of Allah. He is not scared of anyone else except Allah. And there's also a hadith, Inna man khafa Allah, khafa minhu kull. Is a gist of the hadith that whoever fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything is fearful of him. And if a person is fearing, is fearful of the things or the makhluk, not of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then everything frightens him. This is the hadith Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if a person is only fearful of Allah, is only scared of Allah, then everything is scared of him. On the other hand, if a person is fearful of all the things, then everything will frighten him. So, khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the root of everything, is the origin of each and every good. That is khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is this khawf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which helps a person to do each and everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember one of the beautiful story of Sultan Murad. I don't know whether I have discussed this before or not, but I repeat it. It's a beautiful thing which need to be remembered all the time, because it helps us everything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know the Ottoman Caliphate. Ottoman Caliphate was it was the Ottoman Khilafah, Al-Khilafat al-Osmaniyya, and it was abolished by the British in 1924. Until 1924, we had our own sunrise based on Istanbul. That was the center of the Khilafah. However, it was abolished by the Western powers after the First World War in 1924. That all the Muslim world was shattered into pieces. It is after that that the concept of nation state emerged. So that Ottoman Caliphate and the Ottoman Caliphs, Al-Khulafa Al-Uthmaniyun, the Ottoman Caliphs, one of the Ottoman Caliph or one of the Khalifa of Ottoman Caliphate, it was Sultan Murad. And Sultan Murad was known for his piety and known for his righteousness. One fine night, Sultan Murad is on his bed, but he feels restlessness, a strange kind of discomfort in the heart. He's turning right and left, but of no avail, of no use. Ultimately, when this restlessness increased, what he did, he called upon his commander-in-chief, the military head, and expressed his restlessness of heart, his discomfort of heart. Then he told him, okay, we go and we see, we will have around, and we will have we will have a patrolling of our city, but not in our royal robes. Rather, we will pretend to be the common people. So, dressed in a common manner, they went through the night, and now they are walking at a place. They saw at a far off place the people were flocked together. There was a crowd of people. When they saw it, so they moved towards the crowd. When they reach it there, what they find out, they find a dead body is lying on the road, and people around are passing the negative remarks about him, that he was not good, he deserved to be dead like this. Many things, many negative comments they passed about him. Sultan Murad, nobody recognized him because he was in a normal clothing. So Sultan Murad, he inquired about who this person is. People informed him, he was a drunkard, he was a womanizer. Every day he would go to the wine shop and buy the wine. Every day he would go to the prostitute centers. So it is better that the earth is now feeling quite light of his burden. So he deserved to be under the heaps of the soil. So everybody is just commenting negatively about him. Sultan Murad told them, okay, whatever he did, now he has to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. We have to fulfill our responsibility. At least we will take his dead body. We'll take this dead body to his home. They said, no, we don't want to be polluted by touching this dead body. So they were all angry with him. But ultimately, Sultan Murad convinced some of them, and they said, okay, one thing we do, we will help you take this dead body to his home, but we won't offer any janazah or nothing else. Sultan Murad said, okay, I agree with this. He helped me to take this body to his home. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa iyyakum. Thank you very much. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.